Hello! Welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are going to do another one of our little companion
Breakdown.
Quick and dirty.
Getting dirty.
With these companions that everybody's raging about that just came out with Ikoria. So we are going to talk about the Obosh one in particular in this one today. So if you haven't seen our other ones, feel free to check those out. We've done 4 so far.
Yep.
Yes. So check those out. This is the 5th one. So Leslie, what is Companion and what is all about this Obosh dude?
All right. Well, a companion card is a card that does kind of 2 things. First of all, it sits. You can reveal it before the game. It sits off to the side in what I'm calling the companion zone, and you can play it at any point during the game once. If it dies, it's dead. It's not like your commander where you can bring it back. It just allows you to have that 1 extra card that you can play once. However, it also has some stipulations on the card that if you use it as your companion, your starting deck has to follow certain rules. It's important to remember that that's the starting deck, not the sideboard. Fun facts that we've learned over the last little while. Yes. So it doesn't matter with this one. But so Obosh as a companion is a 3 and 2 hybrid mana creature that's a 3/5. Your starting deck has to contain only cards with an odd converted mana cost and land cards. So that's kind of interesting. It gives you a little bit of like difficulty, I guess, in building your deck. So the nice thing about companions is, number 1, if you're a new player, it gives you a base or some rules to follow when you're building your deck to just kind of give you some guidelines. Or if you're wanting something a little bit more challenging in a deck, sometimes it's like, yeah, build a deck, but here's some rules for you.
Very narrow, yeah.
So I kind of consider this one as one of those ones that can narrow it down for you because it fits in so many different decks. So if a source you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So if you've had some way of making your creatures have a bigger power and you're doing damage with them and Obosh is on the battlefield, then that is good for you, which is exactly what this deck does. So in general, what are you seeing with Obosh and decks that are made with Obosh?
They're very aggressive, extremely aggressive. It's hitting you in the face really hard as fast as they can kind of thing. So there's like Gruul version, there's the Red Deck Wins version.
Is it?
Yeah, like.
And then Sack.
Oh yeah, and then of course the Rakdos Sack with it as well, because Rakdos Sack does tons of damage, and then it just doubles it. It's just insane. So,
I guess the main thread with most of them is that there's some kind of red in it. I guess, like you said, very aggressive decks. But I guess my question to you is, do you think it's worth having as a companion? Knowing that you have to only use odd cards, does it take these decks? So it can really go in any of these. Most of the time I'm seeing it in like you said, you have a Red Deck Wins deck, let's make this your companion. What does that do to that deck? You have a Rakdos Sacrifice deck, put the Obosh with it, and what does it do to that deck? Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? So what are you seeing?
Well, one of the things that I noticed the most with it is how much it actually slowed down the aggressive decks. So that might be a bad thing depending on who you're playing with. If you're playing with slower kind of control-y sort of things, that might be okay. But kind of the point of playing an aggressive deck is to kill them before they get a chance to set up their stuff. So I kind of find that this slows down the deck a little bit. Plus, it feels like there's holes because you don't have any of those like 2 drops or 4 drops in there, so it kind of feels like there's holes in the deck.
Yeah, you're building because let's talk about Red Deck Wins first because we'll go to key cards. So for Red Deck Wins, some of the key cards, of course, that you're seeing, all of your 1 drops that are 1/1s are all odd, so you can keep those in there for Red Deck Wins. Your Scorched Spirit, your Fervent Champion, and your Tin Street Dodger are some of the main ones that you're seeing. But you then have to take out some of the ones that you might be using in your red deck wins that are great cards. So for example, Cavalcade for Calamity, if you've gone with the Calamity deck, is 2 mana cost.
Yep.
You can't use that in this. So you might have Chandra Spitfire in there, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't go off as much because you've had to take out Cavalcade for Calamity. So is it worth making Obosh your companion if you have to take out Cavalcade? Maybe. You're also losing Torbrand because that's 4 mana cost. So that makes sense because Torbrand does 2 extra damage and Obosh, it would just be ridiculously broken if they had, you could put Torbrand in this deck, which is probably why they chose Odd because they were probably thinking about that.
You're losing Steamkin as well.
You're losing Runaway Steamkin as well. Yeah. So I guess in your opinion for red deck wins, do you think it's better to just keep the original red deck wins that's good, like you were saying, that you know that I'm building this deck because it's better, or I'm building this deck because it works with Obosh?
I think I'm just building this deck because it works with Obosh. And yeah, if you're going against slower kind of matchups, I think it's a good fit for that. But because that's where I've seen it, is against control-y kind of things, and you can't control it. It's very difficult.
So Heraldic Banner, I think, is one card that makes this one more aggressive than others. It's kind of like that key card in this deck that makes Obosh better in the red deck wins.
Because it buffs up everything.
Because it buffs up everything. So what does Heraldic Banner do?
It, as it enters the battlefield, you choose a color, so obviously red in this case, and then creatures you control of that color get +1/+0. So it just adds to that aggression. You're doubling, your little 1/1s become 2/1s. So then it becomes, you're hitting them for 4
damage,
right?
Yeah.
So that's a substantial difference.
And it's a mana
And it's
in and of
mana,
itself.
too. Yeah.
So you can play more in one turn.
Yeah. So you're really taking advantage of those 1 drops, I think. Whereas before they were nice in there, but I think you have in Obosh deck, you probably have more 1 drops than you normally would have. And then again, then they're hitting harder than they normally would.
The one thing that I noticed when I was playing, because I have both and I like both, that I think is better with the Obosh deck is quite often this deck has Light Up the Stage in it, which gets you a little bit of card draw. And almost, I would say 75% of the time, if I play Light Up the Stage on turn 2 or 3, and don't have enough mana to possibly play Torbrand if he comes up, he always comes up. And then I get burned and I lose my Torbrand because I didn't have enough mana to play it. Whereas with the Obosh deck, because Torbrand isn't in there and it's all just 1 or 2 drops, you're almost always going to have enough mana to play whatever comes up with that. So I can actually play my Light Up the Stage on turn 2 and then take advantage of that extra card draw, get some more mana out, have some mana in my hand, have maybe another Light Up the Stage or another creature that I can have out, maybe a Heraldic Banner for 3. We're drinking water, I swear. Heraldic Banner for 3 on the next turn, which then gets you extra mana. You can play your Obosh faster. So I do think that that's actually a benefit to playing the Obosh deck rather than the Torbrand deck. But I totally agree with you that it definitely slows it down. So what about the sack deck? Talk to me about the differences between the sack deck. So first of all, what is the sack deck? What are the key cards in that? And what can you use with this versus...
So the red and black sacrifice deck takes advantage of things like Mayhem Devil and your creatures dying, which you're doing deliberately, Cauldron Familiar, Witch's Oven, all that stuff. You're doing that deliberately so that you do damage to the person's face. So you're killing them with this extra damage that's coming out of nowhere, basically. With Obosh, of course, that's doubling it. But because you are using Obosh, you have to only use 1 and 3 costs. So you're losing things like Dreadhorde Butcher, those really, really aggressive sacrifice cards that really help with that whole damage thing. So actually I found that it wasn't as good with the sacrifice deck as just the sacrifice deck by itself. So it didn't add that much to it, I thought, because again, by the time you get to Obosh, you're not using all that damage that you could be doing with if you had Dreadhorde Butcher, for example. It's such a key card in the deck.
Yeah.
So
I think the nice thing too, though, with the companions that to remember is that you don't have to just use companions in standard. So we're talking about standard right now. Most of our examples, of course, are on Magic Arena just because that's an easy way for us to film. That doesn't mean we're not talking about paper magic or not, but we're talking standard. But if you move this into modern or vintage or something like that, you have a lot more cards that are odd mana costs that you could potentially take advantage of. So it might get better, but right now, as it is, I kind of agree with you. Sometimes you plop them in as a companion on your Magic Arena and it'll show you, you're losing these cards. You can't use them now.
and you're like, oh no.
Is it worth taking out those cards? And are there good ones that you can replace with it? Because you shouldn't just build around Obosh. You should build a deck that's going to be a good deck.
That's a good thing to point out. That's what's nice about using Arena when you're learning to build these decks and you put your companion in that companion slot. If you've got the filter, which is automatic for the most part, turned on, it'll actually show you the cards that aren't allowed in that. So it makes it a lot easier, and it only shows you cards in your collection that work in that particular companion deck. So it's really, really helpful in being able to know what you can put into that.
You can
deck,
go, yeesh. Oh, that means I can't use Torbrand.
Why is it there? Oh, right.
Well, that makes sense.
It doesn't even show
is
it
worth
you.
it?
Yeah.
I always try it anyway. Because I don't mind losing. I lose a lot. It's fine. But try everything at least once.
Definitely.
So that's kind of, I guess I've also seen some other ones with Gruul and Izzet. The Izzet one is mainly around, that I've played anyways, mainly around controlling the board and then doing direct damage to their face once you have Obosh out. Things like the Brazen Borrower and is the Brazen Borrower 3? Is that the one I'm thinking?
Yep.
Yeah. Brazen Borrower and the little Spectral Sailor. They are your flyers that can do kind of more damage, which is kind of fun because Obosh is black-red and you wouldn't think that blue is going to do extra damage, but it's odd. So yes, it does extra damage. So you can, if you're a control player, you can take advantage of Obosh, which is nice. And Gruul, you've played or seen some Gruul stuff.
Yeah, and add Embercleave in there too. Oh my gosh, it's just I've been run over by a Gruul deck with Obosh in it before. It just does.
So that's the nice thing about Obosh is if you do want to use him, it's funny, the ones that are aggressive I call hims and the ones that are not as aggressive I call hers. I don't know. But Obosh seems like a him to me. It doesn't matter what type of player you are, you could use Obosh, which is I guess one thing that's really nice about Obosh.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
That's the quick and dirty of Obosh. If you want to use him, we'd love to hear how you've used him and if you like him or if you think, what's the point. If you're a modern player, tell us how you're using him in modern, if at all. But that's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We are available on YouTube and podcast, wherever you can download podcasts. You can feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch. We are on all of the social media. We would love to hear what you think. That's it for this time, and we'll see you next time. In the meantime, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.